Today's topic is the fabrication of history of Japan by the Cambridge History of Japan. This book, printed by Cambridge University Press. So many people would think that this kind of books are pretty reliable and believable because the printers are very reliable, like Cambridge University Press or something. Then because Cambridge University is one of the most famous and prestigious colleges in the world, many people think in that way. But don't judge a book by its cover. There are many fabrications and manipulations of the history of Japan, not only history of Japan but also history of Korea and East Asia. So you've got to examine all of the contents in the book by your knowledge and the other evidences from reliable sources. Let's start. The name of my presentation today is Fabricated History of Asian Japan. My channel name is Authentic History. Please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. So the first page of my presentation is the remnant of Japanese colonialism. All of the problems, fabrication, and manipulation of the history in this book is based on and derived from this problem, the remnant of Japanese colonialism. In the era of colonialism in the late 19th and early 20th century, Japanese imperial and colonial historians, with their distorted historical viewpoints, which emphasizes the greatness of the king of Japan and their country, fabricated the Asian history of Japan. Although they have modified the content of the studies a little, they still maintain the same historical perspective and continue their studies of the Asian history of Japan. With that distorted perspective, they still have the wrong study, and the result of the study also wrong. Okay, then what's that got to do with anything with this book printed by CPU, Cambridge University Press? I think the CPU, Cambridge University Press's mistakes are things like below. This book accepts the historical perspective of Japanese imperial and colonial historiography. This is pretty amazing to me, because if they have the minimal reason to think about the evidences and the assertions of the Japanese scholars, then they would not take this kind of distorted historical view and the studies based on that kind of perspective. So I have a kind of suspicion that is it because they have a similar history of colonialism. So there are some, in the UK, there are some scholars like Nigel Bigar. His recent book's name is Colonialism: A Moral Reckoning. This is pretty, meaningful. So, but this is just a suspicion. So I do not blame the, authors and editors of this book. So 6 of the 10 chapters of this book were written by Japanese historians. So of course, there are many contents of this book which represent the Japanese historical perspectives, which is wrong. So there are some excerpts from this book. The present generation of Western historians can draw upon the solid foundations of modern Japanese historical profession. This sentence is written in general editor's preface of this book. I was really surprised when I was reading this part. Solid foundation of the modern Japanese historical profession. They are wrong. I'm going to show you later in this presentation. At this point, I just want to point out they have accepted 100% the historical perspective of Japanese historians. And the second excerpt is like this. Multi-volume series have appeared many times in Japanese since the beginning of the century, but until the 1960s, the number of professionally trained historians of Japan in the Western world was too small to sustain such an enterprise. Although that number had grown, the general editors have thought it best to draw on Japanese specialists for contributions in areas where they retain a clear authority in the general editor's preface of this book. So they confessed the Western scholars who participated in writing this book confessed that they have been affected and they have lots of helps from Japanese scholars. So it means they represent the historical perspective and the works of studies from Japanese scholars. So, so the general editors say like this: the primary object of the present series is to put before the English reading audience as complete a record of Japanese history as possible. I think they failed because the content of this book in many parts are totally wrong, factually wrong, and logically wrong. I'm gonna show you how they made a mistake from now. My main thesis of this presentation is like this: Yamato Kingdom, the ancient kingdom of Japanese history, is a colony of Baekje. Baekje is one of the three ancient kingdoms of Korean history. While the excerpts below, like this and like this, are totally untruthful. They are not true. Let me just spell it out. The first excerpt says that this seems to have enabled the Yamato kingdoms to marshal the human and physical resources needed for constructing huge mounds, undertaking ambitious military campaigns into distant parts of the country, and extending their control before the close of the 4th century to territory as far away as the Korean peninsula. So this is 180-degree opposite of the truth. The truth is Yamato Kingdom was a colony of Baekje. But they say that Yamato Kingdom had enough power to control a part of Korean peninsula. This is, for me, pretty amazing comment about the history of Japan and the history of Korea. Even this is unimaginable if they, deeply delve with the evidences, textual evidences, and archaeological evidences from many parts of Korea and Japan. If you take a look at a map of East Asia, then you very easily figure out that Korea is a part of the continent. As you know, Japan is an insular country, while Korea is a part of the continent. So the basic and unchangeable trend and the direction of the diffusion, political power, economic effect, and culture, knowledge, technology, all of those things are from continent to island. This is quite, natural direction of the influence if you think about the relations between the Roman Empire and the Britain Islands in the ancient time in the Western world. So was it in the East Asia. So those excerpts are something like this: the Britain Island in the ancient time had invaded the Roman Empire and conquered the territory and had the control over it. The second excerpt: the invasion of Silla. Silla is another ancient kingdom of Korean history. The invasion of Silla by Yamato at the turn of the 5th century. So this is another fallacy of this book. So at that time, in ancient time, Yamato kingdom did not have enough power to make a military campaign crossing over the sea between Japan and China. So it is unimaginable. So this is a kind of history of idea. This is just the creation of history, not history study, not study of history. The invasion of Silla by Yamato at the turn of the 5th century served to harden the alliance that separated these two Northeast Asian tributary kingdom systems by increasing 1. Silla's dependence on Goguryeo. This is true, but the second one is very problematic. Baekje's dependence on Yamato. In Baekje's dependence on Yamato. So the truth is, Yamato kingdom was a colony, one of colonies of Baekje dynasty. But this book refers to Baekje's dependence on Yamato. This is totally untruthful, factually wrong. And the final excerpt says that until the middle of the 4th century, Goguryeo was the strongest of the 3 Korean kingdoms, even considering people in the other 2, Baekje and Silla. So they are 3 kingdoms of Asian history of Korea: Baekje, Silla, and Goguryeo, to be its subject. But then, and as we have noted, Goguryeo became embroiled in bitter battles with the Baekje kingdom to the south. Approximately 2 years after Baekje had presented the seven-pronged sword to the Yamato king in 369, Baekje soldiers, according to Samguksagi is one of the historical sources from Korea, actually invaded the Goguryeo capital, thereby placing in jeopardy Goguryeo existence as an independent kingdom. So only this excerpt, the last one, is reliable. So thanks to this last excerpt, we could know that Baekje dynasty was as powerful as Goguryeo, which was one of the most powerful countries in the East Asia at the time. So we could find amazing contradiction between 2 parts of the same book. In this part, Baekje dynasty is one of the most powerful countries in the East Asia at that time. But in the first excerpt, the Yamato kingdom have enough power to extend their control to territory as far as the Korean peninsula, in which there was Baekje dynasty. My main thesis in this presentation is that Yamato kingdom is a colony of Baekje, and this is the evidence for my thesis. I have drawn this picture from this site. From this site, the link is here. This is a sword given from Baekje dynasty's crown prince to the king of Yamato kingdom. They call it the seven-pronged sword. So there are some, inscription on the surface of this sword. So I'm going to show you. So they are letters inscribed on the surface of this sword. This means a feudal lord, and this means Baekje, one of the 3 kingdoms of Korean ancient history, and these 3 letters mean these 3 letters mean the crown prince. So the crown prince of Baekje kingdom, Baekje dynasty, and those two letters, Wang, mean the king of the Yamato kingdom. Those 4 letters mean pass down and show it from generation to generation. So the content of the inscription on the surface of this sword is something like this. The crown prince of Baekje dynasty in Korea had bestowed this sword to the king of Yamato. So the relationship between Baekje dynasty and the Yamato kingdom was something like the empire and its colony. Of course, Baekje dynasty was the empire, and the Yamato kingdom was its colony in this comparison. So many people are mixed up with this letter. We Korean call it gong, and this means definitely bestow, not present. As we have known above, Baekje dynasty at that time, 369, Baekje dynasty could defeat Goguryeo, one of the most powerful countries in the world of East Asia at the time. So there was no room in Korean peninsula for the Yamato kingdom at that time to extend their control over the Korean peninsula. And the second evidence for my thesis is that no iron manufacture in Japan until 6th century. This is also a kind of common sense in the field of East Asian history. This is Usagi Travel Guide homepage. The link of this page is this. So it says that iron making since ancient times. What is Tatara iron manufacturing? Iron manufacturing began in Japan around the late 6th century. This is very easy and simple. Iron manufacturing began in Japan around the late 6th century. So let's think about it. There was an Asian kingdom, and the kingdom did not have the technology of manufacturing iron. They couldn't make iron. They couldn't manufacture iron. They couldn't churn out iron until the late 6th century. But they have enough power to undertake ambitious military campaigns into distant parts of the country and extend their control to territory as far as the Korean peninsula. So at that time, I mean the 4th century AD and the 5th century AD, Silla, Baekje, and Goguryeo, three kingdoms of Korean history, Korean Asian history, had enough power to resist and sometimes defeat the Chinese countries, the Chinese Asian nations, Chinese Asian countries. So they were very powerful. They are, kind of out of league from the perspective of the Yamato kingdom, the Japan at the time. So it is a kind of sci-fi novel if some historian writes that an Asian kingdom, even without the technology to manufacture iron, could extend their control over the sea to territory as far as the Korean peninsula, in where there are very powerful Asian countries. So the conclusion is that those things in this book is a total fallacy, is a kind of fraud. So this is all I have prepared for today's presentation. Thank you very much. I am very pleased to have a kind of rebuttal from anybody. So if you have any rebuttal against my thesis, then please, I'm gonna answer all of the questions from you. I'm never gonna avoid debating, even though somebody has very powerful rebuttal. So thank you very much. If my presentation today was helpful, please subscribe to my channel to share our knowledge and broaden our vision. Thank you very much.